to, of course, the interview of the afternoon, where we are celebrating women in sports. And in studio, as I earlier told you, Shezhana Anwar is here. Do remember Shezhana Anwar is the first ever woman to represent Kenya at the Olympics in archery, and she was the flag bearer for Team Kenya at the Rio Olympics opening ceremony. And Shezhana, I think my first question would be how it felt being Kenya's flag bearer at the Rio Olympics.
So many people have asked me that question. I think I'm going to say that my smile gave it away. Because my father actually told me when I came back, he says, I've never seen such a big smile on your face. Why don't you smile like this at home? I was like, Dad, I was carrying the flag. I felt like it was the first time I was recognized as a Kenyan athlete, because I've been in the sport 15 years. And you can imagine last year was the first time I was recognized as an actual Kenyan athlete.
And speaking of the 15 years, please tell us about your 15 years before the Rio Olympics.
My 15 years was just trying to get to competition without sponsorship or without backing, relevant backing, financial backing. My father was my sole sponsor for most of those years. It was just trying to make it as far as we could as an archer, as a Kenyan athlete. So we had to time our competitions well. We had to decide and give up some competitions to attend others to see which ones would make a bigger difference. So I've been for over 10 international competitions in the past 15 years. The Olympics was my biggest feat.
And probably many people would ask, why archery?
I have been a sports person since the beginning, to be honest. Like I said, hockey is one of my favorite sports. I love football, basketball, netball, throwball, squash. I started recently. I love them all. But archery it was just something I'd never seen before. I mean, growing up as a child, we used to see it on TV, and we used to try and imitate it in my mom's garden, you know, cutting down her trees and making our own equipment. So when I came across it as a sport, my parents actually very much encouraged me to try it. And I learned later this is because we actually have a religious saying where apparently archery, horse riding, and swimming are the only sports that, human sports, that angels would partake in. So my parents, being of very religious background, they encouraged me to continue with it.
And probably speaking of, archery, mostly I love to avoid being a woman. But then again, being we are celebrating women the whole of this weekend, definitely by extension for the whole of the month. How is it like being a woman in sports? Do you have to work extra hard? Or probably, do you have maybe less options as compared to the men? How is it like?
For archery, being such a baby sport as it is currently, it's still developing. It has a long way to go. For me, I guess I was very lucky to have the right amount of backing, being the only one having that kind of support that I could reach as far as I have. Currently, I'm the only woman who represents Kenya. We have a few girls who are coming up now. I really hope they can make it next time. But currently, I'm the only one. So even when I shoot in a local competition or such, normally women and men are separate in archery. Anywhere internationally, you'd find them separate. Here in Kenya, I'm grouped with the men. There's no choice about it. I cannot stand on my own. I need some competition. And my aim was to be #1 in Kenya, which currently I am. So I'm still on top of the men, but they are fighting to catch up.
And I know you tried out all those other sports. Would you say that, maybe in basketball, for example, right now you're part of an all-woman football team. Would you say that probably women are still struggling to catch up with men in terms of what is available for them? What can they choose from in terms of tournaments in the country?
Yes, it is actually true. I've seen it in a lot of sports, but touch wood, from my experience, my first-hand experience, is I've seen that a lot of people are trying to break out of that, which is really good. So I'm concentrating on that as far as we break out rather than as far as we're held down. So for example, a few years ago, I would have never been able to find a women's team. But we have these girls who came together and they're fighting. And we have organizations such as Left Foot Sports who organize tournaments, and they always include the women's section. It may be limited compared to the men's, which is open and vast, but they put it there, which is important for us to continue to progress.
And after the Rio Olympics, of course, which was the highlight, what have you been doing? What are you up to? What are you training for? Have you taken part in any tournament? You know, what's going on?
Okay, the 6 months leading to the Olympics were some of the toughest of my life. It had been my dream for 8 years, but actually qualifying for an event that big, it was almost torture, to be honest. So when I got back, it was just like, I love archery, but I put my bow down. I was like, you know what? My bow's name is Roxy. I actually named her. So I said, Roxy, you're going to sit down for a while.
Why Roxy?
It just came to me as soon as I opened the box. I saved for 2 years for that piece of equipment, which was my first big investment in something. So I don't know, I like to personalize with my gadgets. So as soon as I took her out of the box, I was so happy. I was just like, Roxy, it just came to me. So she's like my baby. So I just told her, you know what, you're going to sit down for a while. I'm going to take a break. And I actually took a break for a few months just to get a hold of life. Because after Olympics, after an event so big, it's kind of like an athlete crash. You don't know what to do thereafter. So I took, so far we've only done a few local competitions, which I've managed to stay on top of, but now I'm trying to get back into training and looking forward for the next Olympics.
Also, before the next Olympics, what happens with you in relationship to archery?
It depends on the funding we get. If we get the right amount of funding, I'll be looking to taking myself and hopefully more archers to represent Kenya in other competitions worldwide. They're there, we just don't have the funding. My aim would be to make it to the next Africa Championship, because to qualify for the Olympics, I am currently the Women Africa Champion. I won the last championship. So the next Africa Championship will be next year, early next year. So I'm aiming to train for that and hopefully win again, defend my title, yeah.
Okay. And of course, for many people who would want to have their kids or, you know, someone they know mentored into archery, is that something that you're considering?
Being a trainer, it's something I do already. On the field, if you ever come to the field, I would set up my bow, but that's as far as I'll get to shooting during a social day, because it'll be like, everyone knows me as Cookie. So as soon as my bow is set up, I'm about to pick up my arrows. It'll be like, Cookie, I need this. Cookie, I need that. Cookie, I need this. So it's just a whole, I'm like the fundi on the field. So I help people with the equipment because I know the most about it. And there's always people looking for advice, which I help too. So that's me, yeah.
Okay, so all the very best, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you
for having me. Of course, we will be looking forward to coming to training and just having a look at you training the kids. And do remember that we do celebrate you. And now we are just about to wrap up the show, but not before we have a quick look at the top 5 moments of the weekend. As always, Robinson Okenye is in studio to take us through that. Robinson?
Very good afternoon, Lynn Washira. How are you doing? Cookie?
I'm fine.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You doing well?
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, so of course, tell us, you know, you'll talk to her after the show. But first things first, of course, we're celebrating women this week. And so what are we doing for the top 5 moments of the week?
Now that we are celebrating women, we decided to take, a look at the top 5 highest paid female athletes that we have in the world. And at number 5 is none other than Agnieszka Radwanska. She's from Poland, and probably the name might be a challenge to pronounce when it's written, but her name is Agnieszka Radwanska, and her total collection from the year 2016, and this was a research done by Forbes, is $10.2 million. That's 10.2 billion Kenyan shillings, and also the prize money from our winnings from the year 2016 was 6.2 billion shillings. So, and if you look at the achievements that she had in 2016, she was the WTA female fan favorite singles player of the year. So she's one of the people that fans love. And remember, she's won that 6 times in a row, and 4 times in a row she's won the WTA best shot of the year. Moving on to number 4. I don't know, Lynn, you like riding cars?
Well, but not as fast.
Not riding, but driving
not
cars.
As fast. Not as fast, yeah.
At number 4, we have Danica Patrick. Now, she takes part in NASCAR, and the total earnings from the year 2016 was 13.9 million. That is roughly 13 billion Kenya shillings.
Wow.
And the prize money from the winnings, that was 7.9 billion Kenya shillings. And it's not easy. Remember, she was the first female driver to win the Monster in NASCAR. Number 3, we have Ronda Rousey. It's a familiar name when you talk about UFC. That's the Ultimate fighting competition.
It was
earnings.
actually quite a surprise for me.
Why was it a surprise?
I mean, really, it's UFC.
It's UFC. She total earnings from the year 2016 were 14 billion Kenya shillings, and the bonuses from her fight in 2016 were 10 million shillings. So that's a lot of money for her. We move on to number two. Now, you may be surprised at number two we have
Not
Maria
exactly, actually.
Sharapova. The thing is, in 2016, she was barely on the court.
Yeah.
And she actually managed to get 21.9 million shillings. The prize money for the events that she took part in was $1.9 million. And also, from the $1.9 million, the endorsements only were $20 million. That's roughly 20 billion Kenya shillings, a lot of money.
Okay.
Remember, she's making a comeback in April in the Stuttgart Open. That's where she'll be making a comeback after the 15 months ban that she got for doping comes to an end. And number one, it's no surprise, is none other than Serena Williams. Total earnings from the year 2016, 28 billion Kenya shillings. The prize money for the Grand Slams that she won last year, 8.9 million shillings. The endorsements come to around 20 million shillings. That's 20 billion Kenya shillings. Remember, she was the most paid athlete from the year 2016 and getting her 23rd career Grand Slam. It's not something that comes that easily.
And you know what? Looking at the top 10 of the richest and the highest paid athletes, I think most of them are tennis players. And I think if I were Shezhana, I would pick tennis as a sport, just to make sure that I'm among the richest. Thank you very much, Robinson, for coming, and thank you very much, Shezhana. And that's how we wrap up this afternoon's edition of Scoreline. But be sure to join us next Saturday and Sunday. Do remember that every 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Scoreline comes live to you right here on KTN News. Do have a very good afternoon, but do stay with KTN News. Yvonne Okwara will be up next with News Center.